Welcome, everyone, to Beyond Surviving, the safe space for survivors of childhood sexual abuse to receive support, resources, and share their stories. Beyond Surviving is about freedom, healing, connection, and even laughter and fun. Most importantly, it's about letting go of the pain of abuse and finally moving on. I'm Rachel Grant. For those of you who don't yet know me, I've been a sexual abuse recovery coach since 2007, and I'm the author of Beyond Surviving, the final stage of recovery from sexual abuse. You can learn more about me and the Beyond Surviving program at rachelgrantcoaching.com. So here we are in beautiful May, and yet again, I have with me a wonderful, amazing Beyond Surviving graduate. Today, Chris is joining me, and he is going to be sharing with us about his journey from being closed off and isolated to breaking down those walls so he could really welcome in love and connection. So, Chris, thank you so much for being here with me. It's so wonderful to see you again and to connect with you. And I just can't wait to, really get into your story and your journey today. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's great to see you, Rachel, and excited to be here.
Yeah, I was looking back at, our work together, and you graduated in 2017. So
Wow.
it's been a little minute since
Yeah.
you left the program, and life has been changing for you. Tell me about some of the new things that are happening in your life today.
Yeah. So life has changed a lot since that time. I now have a beautiful fiance, which we were actually together as boyfriend and girlfriend when we were going through Beyond Surviving.
Yeah.
I have a 9-month-old puppy that's running around everywhere and just like acting crazy. Um, moved to San Jose recently. Just a change of scenery and headed into a new career path as well that I think has really been something that we worked on,
Yes.
and so we'll probably talk a little bit about that,
Yeah, I
but
love
all good
that.
things.
All good things. And it's so sweet and special for me, exactly, to, have this like fast forward to like the where are they now moment with you, because exactly that, you were working in a job that was not doing it for you when
Yep.
we were working together, and you were, navigating your relationship and trying to figure some things out there, doing really well, but just continuing to want to like up level and show up better and better for yourself and for your partner. Now you're engaged. Better
Yeah.
see those wedding photos. Okay, I want to see them.
Yeah,
And
I'll send
puppy
you some.
photos too.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So let's step back a little bit. Today I know that, one of the main things that we wanted to explore together was your journey in kind of coming out of this place of being very walled off and disconnected. And I wonder if you could take us back a little bit in your life and share with us a little bit about how did those walls even go up? Like, what were some of your lived experiences that caused you to start closing off, shutting down, isolating from other people?
Yeah, I think there's two main, times in my life that I remember that, my walls really came up, whether consciously or subconsciously. The first was, it started when I was little. I was sexually abused by my uncle and continued to, verbally, emotionally abused by, my dad. And so that really made me feel like a weak person. That made me feel like I was under attack constantly, and I
Mm,
was.
yeah.
And so, I my fight or flight mechanisms really kicked in, and so part of that was fight, right? At
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
putting up a wall and not letting people really connect with me or see through what was underneath, or flight, right? Running away, not engaging with folks. And so that was the first kind of area, that just kind of kicked off things in my approach to life. And then, my second was really in college when, I was very involved on campus. I was very social and I had this desire to build relationships and be very social. But at the same time, I was very anxious. My social anxiety kicked in. And I wanted to be seen as, I didn't want to be messed with. I didn't want to look weak, right? I didn't want to, have fun, be silly, all those different things, especially in, when you're in different organizations on campus and you're being looked at. And there's a bunch of pressure as well, and so social pressure. And so those two aspects, or those two pieces of my life, really were where I felt very defensive against, ideas, things I wanted to do, or people that I was interacting with.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that with us. And, you know, we think about this experience of trauma at an early young age, and then being in a home where you feel terrorized. And, we'll talk a little bit about how disconnecting actually helped you.
Mhm.
And then, interestingly, later in your life, that learned behavior and pattern ultimately stopped serving you. I want to get into that in a moment. But one thing I'm curious about that you name there is this awareness a little bit about how, like, I wanted to connect, but I also wanted to be seen at a certain way. And so in some ways I hear like you were crafting an image, crafting the idea of how people saw you or took you. Do you remember that as being very intentional? Do you feel like it was happening kind of subconsciously? What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I think it really changed as I got older. Like
Mhm,
as a child, I remember, I was a very creative child. I was into music, dance, art, things like that. And I remember, not wanting to show that side to my family, to my dad, because I didn't know, how he would react. I didn't know, what he would say. And so I started to shut off those parts, but kind of not so much intentionally. But it wasn't until I was like an adult in college, I was definitely more conscious about crafting that image, right?
mhm,
So
mhm,
looking cool, not appearing to be, you know, like I said, silly, or maybe more feminine, I would say, for
mhm.
liking creative type of things. And so yeah, it was kind of a phased approach where toward, when I was older, I was doing that.
Yeah. And do you think did you have yourself like I'm resonating with that first of all, like in my own journey, I think I held it together through the lens of like, super student and perfection and these sorts of things. And also being a little bit of like it's an interesting thing. Like I think I use my rebellion also as a way to be disconnected.
Yeah.
To make people kind of be standoffish, like, "Ooh, I don't want to get too close to that girl. She's trouble," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which was a weird juxtaposition to being like an A+ student. So like I had this like really odd experience
Yeah.
in high school of that. And but I remember feeling the pain of it, like remembering like really seeing people around me who seemed to have this capacity to really show up and be and connect. uh, was it painful for you? What do you recall about how it actually felt? Or did you get yourself fooled? Like this is good,
Yeah.
this is fine, everything's all right here. Yeah, what do you think
Well,
about that?
yeah, I think that also went through the phases.
Mhm,
I in high school, that's what it was. I was like, I just started comparing myself to others, and that negative self-talk just kind of grew and grew and grew in my head. And that was just kind of the story that I was telling myself, like, oh, they can do it but you can't.
mm,
Or they have that capacity, I don't. And then towards college, I just kind of, and afterwards I just like fell into like, this is who you are. Like this is how you're going to live your life, and there's no other way around it. You can't do these things, so just kind of give up. And I sort of went through a period where I just gave up, and I was
mhm,
just like, okay, this is sitting at home, not going out, not partaking in those things that I wanted to do creatively, or whatever it was. Like I shut that part down completely. So, it wasn't even a thing, I think, you know.
yeah. Convince yourself you
afterwards.
didn't need it, wasn't
Yeah.
important, didn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you think about the different ways that we construct walls in our lives, like what are they actually made of? We use this metaphor, I think, oftentimes when talking about trauma, that we become walled off, we become isolated, we become disconnected. And we've talked a little bit already about some of the ways that you actually did that. And I talked a little about, but I think I'd like to get into that more. Like, when you think about it very broadly, generally, and also for yourself, what was the actual material of the walls? Like, what was the behavior? Are there other things that you noticed that you did that supported this place of separation and distancing?
Yeah. So I think the first one that comes to mind is like physical. Like I, you know, don't or had a hard time smiling at
Mhm,
people, being friendly to people, being nice.
mhm,
Right. Having that wall up, don't mess with me. I look, you know, I want to look a certain way.
yeah,
I don't want to open myself up to anything that could make me weak or vulnerable or
mm,
an attack, right? And so, and then, from a social standpoint, definitely like, not if I'm at home watching TV, eating, I don't have to go out and be seen, be heard, even though secretly that's what I want. That's what I connect with. That's what I love to do. It wasn't something that I was just too exposed. I felt too exposed, and it was something
mhm,
that I just couldn't get over. And so, physically, socially, emotionally as well, like being in relationships where, I had to be right. I had to win. I couldn't be the weak one.
mhm,
Right. So
mhm.
it showed up all over the place. And like I said before, it got to a place where it was just me. Like, this is just who I am.
And then
Um,
all of a sudden it wasn't, right? So there was this like this world that you had crafted and this self that you had crafted that said, okay, this is how I'm going to make it through. I mean, ultimately that's what it's all about, right? Like it's a
yeah.
survival instinct that is
Yep.
an echo of how we survived, like making yourself small, not being seen, not rocking the boat is a really great way to try to attempt to mitigate abusive behavior, though we know at the end of the day it's not your choice, right? It's this other person who's activating all of that. But still, we try, right? And then it carries over into our adulthood, becomes a sense of identity until when? Like, was there a moment for you when you just finally said, I'm sick of being behind these walls? Like you could see it, it was no longer working?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was COVID.
Mhm.
I've done a lot of work up until COVID, but as soon as it hit, I realized I've been in quarantine. I've been in quarantine for years,
Yeah.
before COVID quarantine.
Right.
And once everyone was in quarantine, once everyone was kind of hiding or whatever,
Hmm.
that's when I realized, oh crap, like in the whole life and death, situation with COVID, no one knew
Yeah.
what was going on. So unfortunately, it kind of a life and death situation kind of caused me to say, you know, okay, I've been in quarantine, I've been quarantining myself.
Mhm.
And if you died tomorrow, you're not going to be able to do anything on your life's intentions list, right?
Right.
Like I went back to that and I said,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
this is who I am. This is what I want to be.
Mhm.
And, there's no reason why I can't go out and do that.
Yeah.
And that was the big aha moment for me.
Yeah, nothing like a global pandemic to bring the point to a head,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, right, yeah, and in the space of, oh gosh, there's a lot of things there I wanna pick up on. There's this place in which, we did this exercise together, right, in our work around life intention. So for those of you listening, the idea, this is born out of Mary Nemeth's work, who wrote the energy of money. And the idea is you make a list of all the things you've ever wanted to do or have, and then you translate those into to be statements. So I want to have a house in the country, like to be in nature, to be relaxed, to be
Hmm.
peaceful. Do you mind sharing some of your life intentions?
Yeah, I remember the first one I wrote down right away was I want to be a famous musician.
Hmm.
And I always thought like, that's so silly of me, like that, that's never gonna happen. Um, but then turning it into to be a statement, it was really to be seen, right? To be heard, to
Mm.
be in front of people.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't doing that. That wasn't, that was from work, from my work life to my social life, like it wasn't in sync. And I knew that
Mm.
was the number one thing that I wanted to do, wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was a big.
Well, cheers to a life intention being played out live in action right now in this moment. We all better
Exactly.
give some like virtual cheers and hugs to Chris. Like, you can talk about being seen. Oh, I'm on a podcast. Look at that. Check that out. Oh
Yeah,
man, I love that.
yeah.
Chris, was there a moment for you when you got really clear that part of what was keeping you walled in was that the trauma that you experienced as a child hadn't been dealt with?
um I mean, yeah, I think the point, I don't know. I mean, I think that it was always something in the back of my head that was, that was there.
Mhm.
But when I came to survive, beyond surviving, what it was for me, it was really, I was in toxic back-to-back relationships, and you always kind of think like, oh, it's the other person, or oh, it wasn't me, or you don't even say it wasn't me. I had no concept of like, hey, this is something I need to deal with,
Mhm.
until like, I was single for a period of time, and then I my relationships with my family and my relationships with some friends like started to become not great as well. And so I entered into the relationship I'm in now, and I said, okay, well, I know I'm meant to be with this person. I know that everything, just clicks, but there's this other side. I had to realize the common denominator was me in that case.
Mhm.
And so that was a big moment. And that's, when I reached out to you.
That's brave. It's really brave. Oh, it's the hardest thing to do to go, maybe it's me.
Yeah.
If I keep getting the same results, maybe it's me.
Yeah.
So you took action, you sought out support, and when we come back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about some of the specific things that you did that really helped you in breaking down those walls and creating, love and connection in your life. So hang tight. We'll be right back. For survivors of abuse, shame can be one of the most pervasive feelings we carry well after the abuse has ended. As a result of trauma, we come to believe that we are at fault or to blame for what's happened. Then this transforms into a deeply rooted way of being that impacts our sense of self. We come to believe that we are unlovable, and then we find ourselves constantly in self-blame, shame, and in derogatory or negative thinking. In my Shake Off the Shame masterclass, you will gain access to my proven process that will help you feel more confident and secure so you can put an end to taking care of everyone but you. You can identify the toxic shame-based beliefs that keep you trapped in a cycle of taking the blame for everything and how to overcome them, and learn practical, easy-to-use strategies for how to escape shame and finally love who you are. Go to rachelgrantcoaching.com/shame-class to download this MP3 masterclass today. Now back to our show. Welcome back, everyone. So, Chris, this has been a long journey, and there's always room for more growth and learning. But I know when we're talking about connecting today, that you named three things that you felt really played a huge part in you being able to drop down those walls. So let's walk through those. There's self-love, compassion, and empathy. So which one do you want to start with?
Let's go with self-love.
Awesome. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. What role does self-love really play when it comes to helping us, supporting us in breaking down the walls so that we can be in relationship and connection?
Yeah, so with self-love, like it's all about, being kind to yourself, right? Like
Mm.
if you can't be kind and live with yourself, or be kind to yourself and live with yourself, then it's really hard to do that with other people. And so, in my relationships, that's something that I've learned is, you know, I I have to be kind to myself, or it's not going to happen. I don't have that capacity to give to others what I don't have, and it's kind of the same thing with my parents. And I've realized that,
Yeah.
and so being able to foster that in whatever way you need to is really
Mhm.
huge, because that is only going to make you uh, realize who you are and love the person that you are, so that you don't have to have and walk around with these walls, um, that are really not who you are.
Yeah, something that I certainly sat with and felt so much in my life, and that I hear 99.9% of the time from my clients is this idea of like, I don't want anyone close because when they get close, they see the real me and it's not pretty. And
Hmm.
that is not true, but it's because we're sitting and seeing ourselves through the lens of shame and trauma and the abuse. And we don't love that self. We don't love that person. Whereas exactly that, my experience was as I came into that deep understanding and resonance with myself and how awesome and badass and beautiful and amazing and how lucky you are to be in my circle, then
That's right.
yeah, all of a sudden it was like, I don't have to be afraid of connecting with other people because if they get to know me and they don't like me, well, they're lost. It's all right. Not everybody has to like me, by the way, also, and that's okay. And that's a part of self love too. Yeah. Have you found that to be a part of your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who had so much negative self-talk.
Mm.
It's just insane. But I think, something that I've really realized over, the past couple of years is boxes, right? Like that,
Oh, yeah.
how what you think about me, what you think about, what I just said or what I'm wearing, that's in your box.
Mhm.
That's not something I need to carry around, because that, might contribute to the problems I have with my own self image. I need to, what I feel about myself, and how all of that stuff, that's all my box, and I
Yeah.
can own that and I can control that. And so that's kind of, I think that's like the first step in self-love is realizing what you have control over, which is, how you see
Mhm.
yourself, how you take care of yourself, and all that.
Yeah. Is there any beyond surviving tool or just any practice that you use in your day to day that you come back to again and again that supports that cultivation of self love?
Yeah, I think for me, it's learning about the payoffs and the costs of doing things, right? A lot of the time, I've, as I'm working, towards self-love and development, it's really been about, okay, if I want to go to an acting class, for example, um, you know, the self if I want to go to an acting class, for example, what are the payoffs of that? What are the costs? The payoffs are that, I'll probably feel better. I'll probably, get some sort of hobby, and it'll open up my creativity,
Mhm.
and my mind and my heart. And so, that's something I use to constantly make decisions, and it's
Nice.
usually, for the best.
Yeah, I love that. What role does compassion play in supporting us in breaking down walls?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, what role does compassion play in supporting us in breaking down walls?
Yeah, this is something that's hard when you have walls up because, right, you want to. In my case, I was, pushing people away or not even having people around me, and so,
Mm.
what I've learned is, having compassion for yourself, but also others, um, only helps you understand and only helps you really look at someone else and say, hey, like, we have more in common than I thought, or,
Ooh, I love that, Chris.
just
Yeah.
opening yourself up to be compassionate about others
Mm,
is vulnerability. And
mm,
so, through that vulnerability, you can develop that self-love. Like I've learned that, it's okay to be vulnerable. Like I can talk to my friends and family about my mental health, um, and connect with them about their mental health, and share my
uh,
compassion, about their situation or what they're going through. And I think that only allows me to be more of myself and, love the person I I am, because usually, it's a great result when you're
mm.
compassionate and, when you can connect with others on that level.
What you just made me think of was, I'm probably gonna name the characters, or is it Isolde? And I feel like the guy, it starts with a T. It's a story from Shakespeare where the two lovers are stuck on either side of the wall. And there's this wall, and they come up to the wall every night and they talk, and they try to connect, but there's this barrier.
Yeah.
And this idea that as we understand our own suffering, and as we understand the suffering of others and have compassion and want to alleviate that suffering, then there's such benefit in doing the work to remove that wall. Because ultimately, what it really is that all of us want that connection.
Yeah.
All of us want to be known and seen and heard and understood. And so when we can access it through, like, me connecting with you is actually a way of eliminating, or eliminating suffering by way of my compassion for myself and for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's think about empathy. So now we bring in this third little piece of the puzzle. First of all, how do you think of empathy? Like, how does that differ from compassion? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think for me, empathy is really about, you know, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, but also,
Mm,
going through the motions of, actually trying to feel their emotions through walking through those motions.
mhm,
And it's not just, maybe expressing something, but actually thinking through, how would you handle it? Maybe everyone says, oh, I would have handled something this way or that way, but actually you probably wouldn't, right?
right.
So it's about thinking through the steps that they might take, just or anything like that.
Mm.
I always put myself in other people's shoes, and I'm like, holy crap, like that's, it could go so many
Yeah.
different ways. And so that just gives you ultimately an understanding of, where they're coming from, where they might be going.
Mhm,
And for me, it's an opportunity to just learn more about other people. And
mhm.
it comes back around, like learning more about other people, I learn about myself constantly.
Um,
um so I think
that's
that's a
amazing.
yeah.
What that sparks in me is this sense that a lot of times I know I held myself away and apart from other people because there was a presumption that connection was going to lead to pain, and rejection. Right, these were the main things that I was trying to really avoid through being isolated and disconnected. I love the idea that empathy causes us to step into the shoes of other people. And so then rather than seeing them as evil or antagonistic or violent, whatever it might be, dangerous, even if I can see you and see your perspective, then that humanizes that person. And then they become more approachable. And then my fear can diminish. Yeah. Is there anything you'd add to that or change there?
No, I mean, in my own experience, I've used empathy to really connect with my father. A lot of the things that
Mhm.
I've realized that he has done or does, comes from a specific place, comes from a specific fear, or it's something deeper than what's on the surface.
Yeah.
And so figuring out what that is, has been a huge instrument for me to be able to say, okay, you might be doing this or you might be doing that, but I kind of understand, and I have that compassion for you,
Mhm.
because of what you've been through, or because of what you're going through.
Yeah, and could you speak a little bit more to that relationship, Chris? Because I so many people listening, I know you all are dealing with relationships that feel really just irreconcilable and difficult and broken. And watching you navigate that journey with dad and coming to the place where you are now with it all. Will you speak to it just a little bit more, like what it was like and what it is today, and maybe even any words of encouragement or advice for somebody who's in that kind of perplexing place of wanting to have relationship but not quite sure how to get there?
Yeah, I think that's the first thing, is wanting to have it. I completely understand and respect people who maybe don't want to have the relationship or aren't ready for certain things. But I think that's the first thing, is genuinely wanting to have that connection and wanting to have it without strings attached. I think that's a big one, right? I think
Mm.
you have to, like, use the three things that we've just talked about: self-love, compassion, and empathy, to really be okay to enter that setting, and make sure that you are getting what you need from the relationship. For me, with my dad, it's definitely, it's been tough, but I think since the program, and after the program, Beyond Surviving program, it's really allowed me to, like I said, put let him put things in his box, me put
Mhm.
things in my box. And it's really been about trying to understand him more and more, um, through empathy, through compassion. I have a lot of compassion for him now. So opening yourself up to feeling that for that person. And you kind of got to know some of their history and some of what they've been through.
Yeah.
My dad's been through a lot. And I can't imagine, like I said earlier, I can't imagine uh how he went through everything and he's still standing. um,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it was like not getting the things that I wanted so desperately, and not getting the things that he probably wanted to give but didn't have and didn't receive himself.
Mhm.
So just those kinds of things I've been able to really focus on whenever I'm with him, or whenever
Mhm.
we're around each other, and that has opened up my heart to be more compassionate to others, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
that he was the big one that I had to get over, right? In terms of relationships. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think just being willing, and keeping compassion and empathy right in your back pocket, um, will hopefully serve you well.
Wow. Well said. I'm so inspired to just see how you've continued to build on, the work that we've done and to craft a life that is full of love and adventure. And I hope you're doing art acting classes, like for real, or
Yeah.
something creative and
Yeah.
playful and silly, and all those, like, accessing those parts of yourself. And maybe that might be a nice place to go next as we start to wrap up. What are some of the things, like, ooh, today I get to be and I am, that I never thought I could or wasn't ever letting myself be before?
Yeah. I think today I feel seen, heard, and those are some of the things I wasn't doing before. I feel uh, I feel free. I feel happy, but also I continue to be challenged and continue to do the work that we did back in 2017, and working on the toolkit.
Mhm.
Like, working through that. But I think, like you said, you hit the nail on the head there when you said it's about crafting your life.
Mm.
When I realized, kind of like, okay, these walls aren't serving me anymore. I was like, okay, I have the power to go out there and choose the life I want to live. So what is
Mm,
that, right? And so
yeah.
that's where life intentions came in. And so that's really what I've been, focused on and doing. So
Amazing.
it's been great. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, beautiful. It just warms my heart. And I'm just so super inspired of you, by you and proud of you and excited for your future and how things continue to unfold. Chris, do you have any final words of encouragement for anybody who's listening who they know they need to take that next step? They know that being trapped behind those walls is no longer serving them. They're ready to get out, but they just need a little nudge to take that next step. What would you like them to know?
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. It's you get anxious, you get nervous, and you might fall. You might fall again. You might fall again. But honestly, it's just about how you keep going, and keep going through your work, your tools, other resources, um, and you will build that life that you really want. Deep down inside. So that's all
Oh
I got.
my goodness. The time has just flown by. I honestly could talk to you for another 2 hours to get all the more of the updates and what else has been happening over these years. Chris, what an honor it is to have you here with me today. Thank you for stepping into this space, letting us see you. The one I see in you is just effervescent, powerful, seen. Oh my gosh, communicative, loving, playful, and just so empowered and so embodied right now these days. It's beautiful to witness and to see. So, mwah, thank you
Thank
so very much
you.
for being here. What a gift.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Yeah. And thank you everybody for listening and joining us today. If you'd like to make a donation in support of the podcast, go to bit.ly/beyond surviving podcast donation. All contributions will be applied towards funding scholarships, the running of donation-based and free programs, and making sure that those reaching out for support get what they need. And don't forget to visit rachelgrantcoaching.com to learn more about sexual abuse recovery coaching and to explore the other resources available there. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast and then come back next time because we have so much more to share. And until then, take good care of you.